10 years ago, I moved away from my hometown. I could have gone anywhere, but I chose here, Lincoln. And to be honest, I've loved it. It's a lovely place. But how did I end up here? I'll tell you how. This guy, that's Mike. He's now my best friend, and he's the closest I've got to family that isn't my actual family. So basically what happened was, I reached the end of my tether in Grimsby, career-wise. And I was looking for an out, basically, to go somewhere else. My brother, my older brother, Jamie, knew Mike. And then, next thing you know, Mike's on the blower to me, innit? I heard you're a fucking sick chef. Can you come down here and work with me? Also, I've got a room to rent as well. Right, sound. So yeah, that was it. See you later, Grimsby. Put it in layman's terms, or to cut a short story long. No, long story short. Mike's a fucking legend. Fucking heartthought. After making the decision, after Mike said to me what I just mentioned, which is what he definitely said, word for word. I remember it was April. It was April when I moved. Moved over to Lincoln, thanks to Mike. He had a room for me to rent, worked at the Hilton with him for a little bit, and then this is when the Marco franchise or whatever came in and fucking ruined all of our lives. I remember speaking to Mike about it after he found out, and I think he was quite disheartened because they had a rosette and the food was banging, and from what I know now about Mike is, he's a very, very talented chef, and it must have been, as a head chef, it must have been a kick in the teeth for him, massively, for a change just to come in and fucking just take over, basically. So yeah, we went our separate ways then, work-wise. We still live together. Can't remember where Mike went. Where did I go? Did I go to the Tower? I think I went to the Tower, which is where me and Mike both ended up in the end. But I went to the Tower for a little bit. Simon Walker was the head chef. Didn't work out there. And then from there I went to Dexter's Steakhouse, which is now the Dandelion, I believe it's called. Next to what was the Rogue Saint, but now it's not. I don't know what it's called now. Worked at Dexter's Steakhouse for a little bit. And then Harbour Lights. I was there for quite a while. And then after Harbour Lights, went to Brown's Pie Shop. Worked with Danny Gill. That's how I know Danny. My time at Brown's Pie Shop wasn't great. Danny wasn't the easiest person to work for. So I ended up leaving there. That, I believe, is when I ended up back at the Tower. I brought this up in my speech, actually, at Mike's wedding, because I was his best man. He's got 2 kids now and a wife. And I like to say if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have met them. But yeah, essentially, Harbour Lights, I was covering the kitchen when the head chef was absent. And he ended up going absent for good. He didn't die, but, he didn't come back. I ended up suggesting Mike, like, why don't you come and, run the show here? And then he did. And Harbour Lights is where he met the mother of his 2 children. So, but on the flip side of it, the Tower Hotel is where I met Freddie's mum. Now, I was at the Tower Hotel for about 3.5 years, I think. And we got 2 rosettes, decent team. The team didn't change much. We had a solid sort of group for the majority of it, and it was great. It was the best years of my chefing life, really, my chefing career even. I'd learned a lot off Mike whilst I was there. But yeah, no, it was great. And then, COVID happened, didn't it? Met Freddie's mum at the Tower. It was your standard sort of chef, waitress setup. Working together a lot and going out drinking together and stuff, and then, having a bit of an interest in each other and stuff like that. So I think it was very normal in that sense. We started seeing each other quite early on that she felt pregnant. Now, obviously, I absolutely fucking shit my pants. And yeah, it's fucking scary, man. I remember what I thought, my thought process at the time. And now, in hindsight, 5 years later on, 6 years, it makes me feel a bit sick that I thought like that. But it was only because I was absolutely shitting it, didn't know what to do, didn't know how we was going to manage, you know. In my head, I just thought, kids are just really expensive. And like, how am I going to look after someone else? I can barely look after myself, do you know what I mean? But in the end, it turns out that the whole process changed me a lot as a person, for the better. I remember saving up a substantial amount of money, which I'd never really done before. I've always been pretty shit with money, up until, you know, like I say, having a kid changed everything. But yeah, saving up quite a bit of money and stuff for, like, you know, a bed and a cot and things, and then, well, obviously we had a lot of help from family and stuff like that, and friends as well. But yeah, it was a fucking very scary ordeal. And then luckily Jodie's pregnancy, if I remember correctly, went, you know, well, I can't remember her having many issues. So we were lucky in that sense. And while she was pregnant, because we'd had a bit of a history with going out drinking and stuff, like, because we worked in the industry and that's just what you did. I didn't, so obviously Jodie wasn't drinking. I didn't want to drink in front of her and stuff, because I think I was initially, and I think I felt a bit bad. So I stopped drinking, not with the intention on stopping entirely, but just stopping while she was pregnant. Because at this point, we were in lockdown as well. March 23rd, 2020, the first day we went in lockdown. I remember because it was the day that me and Freddie's mum moved into the house that we spent the first 2 years. Yeah, 2 years of Freddie's life, and then we moved. But yeah, so stopped drinking, and I remember because we were in COVID as well, I got a road bike. Yeah, I got a road bike. I started cycling, and I really enjoyed cycling, and I do miss it. I miss it quite a bit, but they're a bit of a money pit, bikes, and I didn't even have a very good one either. Mine was okay, but, you know, I remember just spending money on it for no actual gain, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, just, it might have rode a bit nicer, or it might have looked a bit cooler or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But another thing also, so the Christmas before we moved into this house, and, you know, Jodie was, 5 or 6 months pregnant. That Christmas before, when we told our families, Jodie had gone back to her parents and I'd gone to mine. We'd actually found out that November, before that Christmas, that my dad had cancer. So that Christmas, not only had I found out that I was having a child, I'd found out that my dad was very ill and that he was going to have to go through chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And then I remember I think Mike was off work for some point in December, at the beginning of December, I think it was, because of his first child, which was in November. Yeah, I just had a lot on my plate, and I remember it. I just remember feeling like the fucking world had collapsed on me or something. So, but yeah, and then back to living, you know, in lockdown. I was having 3 meals a day, wasn't drinking, started to feel fucking ace. Still obviously scared about the pregnancy and being a dad and stuff, like, you know, I can barely take care of myself. I'm going to look after a fucking kid. It came round, everything was fine. She had a C-section, and I remember the moment he was born, and I don't think any parent will ever forget it. And I just remember, like, that I just had that feeling in my throat, you know, that throat feeling when you want to cry. And then, yeah, it was just it was mad, completely mad. And it left me with this feeling that I'd never felt before. I now believe it to be unconditional love. I think that's what the feeling is, like, this is just a glow, just like a feeling inside you that you feel when you have a child. And then whenever they're around and stuff, like, unless they're tearing your house upside down and being little shits, but that's different. But yeah, and then lived together for a few years at that house, and then we moved into a different house. We lived there for another couple of years, and then but ultimately, you know, as being parents and stuff, new parents, neglected our relationship. Yeah, but regardless of all that, you know, the second that we broke up, in my head, it was no longer about me and her. It wasn't about, she wasn't just my ex-girlfriend now. It was, she's the mother of my child, so that's how I'm going to treat her. Do you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of people will say, oh, he's a softy, Connor, and all this, and I am a bit of a pushover, but in my head, like, my priority from there on out was working with his mum, Freddie's mum, in order to give him, the best upbringing that we can. So we lived together for another year, just because I couldn't afford to move out, which would have then left her, because she was at uni still at this point. So, I covered the majority of the rent and stuff, and Jodie covered other bits. But we lived together for another year. But I think this worked in our favour, because going in separate beds, I was in the spare room, and then, which meant Freddie was it was either Daddy's bed or Mummy's bed. So that was over the course of a year, which then eventually, when we was able to move out, it was then, right, I'm at Daddy's house now, or I'm at Mummy's house. So it was I think kind of without even meaning to, we sort of eased that process in, sort of thing. And ultimately, like I said, that was the main goal. None of this sort of came down on Freddie. At the end of the day, it was about being a team for Freddie before we went our separate ways, and then just carried it on. And I think we've still got a good relationship now. Just the whole process, with the money, saving money, and just not drinking, it was life changing. Of course it is, having a kid. For the better though. I'm proud of the person that I am now. Right, I'm going to wrap that up, because this is the second time that I've recorded this. The first time I actually didn't press record, so that's very annoying. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If anyone has any questions, if you're in a similar situation or anything like that, you want any advice, just from my perspective, then just, I don't know, you can't message people on YouTube, can you? So, I don't know. Just find me. Just comment, and then we'll sort something out. But yeah, I'll see you next week.